I'm Chris, Senior Solutions Architect with ChartIQ, and I am here to talk to you about something new. So if you've been to Fin.js before or you've seen the Finsemble demo, we've no doubt told you about the utility of integrating other people's applications into your terminal. Today we're going to talk about something new, which is some data applications. A major US bank recently challenged us to put our money where our mouth is and show them how quickly they could plug in other people's stuff. And more than that, how that was going to help them to innovate in their environments without actually even having to use their developers, which is a little bit of a tall order with software. But we come from a world of monolithic desktop apps in capital markets where doing something new almost always involves the software developers. And a typical software development cycle for one of those monsters can be 3 to 6 months. It might be a simple request, just add a pie chart to this view, but we're often told that can take a long time to actually happen. That's not exactly rapid innovation and involves, to a certain extent, some degree of reinventing the wheel quite often. You get a bit of not invented here syndrome. You know, your average developer, once they know how to do something, they want to do it themselves. That's why they're a software developer. We think there's a better way, and that's the open terminal, which, when built with Finsemble, will let you use mature third-party tools and access some of that buy versus build efficiency. It will allow you to tightly integrate your components with or without code changes. Sometimes you've got something from a vendor and you can't get them to change it. We've got ways of making it happen still. And it will allow you to innovate rapidly with short, or if you're lucky and you're using the right tools, no development cycles, which can help unlock the rest of your team's creativity to work with data in new ways without having to wait that long time for it to happen. So I'll introduce you to the first of the tools we've integrated, which is YellowFin, the Business Intelligence and Analytics environment, which, with the help of a Finsemble microservice, can use their web service API to grab an SSO token and launch you straight into the tool without the user having to log in. So your entitlement system can send down their credentials, allowing them to come in and YellowFin to know who they are and what they've got access to. There's a bunch of reports here, for example, that they can look at in the system. However, by also using their web services API, we can do a bit of a deeper integration and build some of our own UI. I built this little report launcher. You might notice it's listing the same reports that were available in the system to the user. Obviously, you don't have to use our launcher. The idea is you can just integrate it into your own components. And once it's in there, it gets all the normal things that a Finsemble application does. I've used here their JavaScript API to embed individual reports into components, which if I start the video, you can see. Essentially, you can now add their reports directly to the desktop, and they can snap and dock and group and resize and do all sorts of things. We can also plug in the web service into our federated search so that we can drive stuff directly from the search menu. So I can just launch a report by name from up there. That allows me to collect up a bunch of different things, start building my workflows, start building a custom dashboard for a particular thing that I want to do. And then I can save its state out, and I might turn it into a named workspace for a particular task. This one I just made for Fin.js. And I've got another one in the box that I got ready, so I'm going to switch over to that one, which comes back, and it knows they're not just YellowFin windows, it knows what's supposed to be in them as well, so it delivers the right charts back there. Once I've had a look at that, if I want to, I can go back and get my old one out and rehydrate that one. So great, you can get fully prepared for a particular client or a particular workflow that you've got to go through every now and again. It can be all there ready waiting for you. We can take that a bit further using some more of the Finsemble APIs. So I've gone ahead and used the router API here to build my own little filter panel. It's going to use the YellowFin JavaScript API again to grab the filters that are available in a particular report and let me apply them to that report. So much like a tool panel in Photoshop or some other application, you can have them floating around and do different things with them. I've gone a bit further and used our linker API to link a few of those graphs together so that they're sharing the same context and they're moving around the same thing. So if I want to go and compare a few stocks, I can reuse those reports set up in that style to do different things. You don't have to just link their graphs together. The information is published. You can come up with a standard or use an FTC3 standard and share that out to your own components, in or out. So back to the challenge, though, which was to allow people to innovate without using the software developers. So you need to be able to create new reports. The nice thing with YellowFin is that you can go ahead and just throw data into a report. So I want to make a report on a particular stock symbol, or in fact, a few stock symbols I'm going to compare. This has got the whole New York Stock Exchange in it, so I'm just going to pick a few tech stocks to do a comparison of. So I set up a filter, come back, and we've got just those 4 left, and I want to chart some metrics from the data. So I'm going to take the trade volume, which is automatically summed up over the whole data set, but I want it on an annual basis, so we'll throw years in there. And there's something else that I don't have, so I'm going to go ahead and just write a little query which is actually going to produce a new metric, so the change in a particular price on a particular day. So throwing that in there, we'll call it price change, and that's calculated and added into the report. Away we go. So next, I want to create a visualization of it. So I'm going to use YellowFin's auto charting tool and start to throw things on there. So I'll have the symbols on one axis, we'll have years on the other, and that's going to make a sort of grid. Let's size the items by the trade volumes, and let's put their price change, what direction they're going on as the coloring. I've now got a heat map. Great. So I can go ahead and publish that as a named report in the system, and I can control access to it. I can give particular users or groups within the organization access to it, or I can keep it private to myself. But it becomes a named report. It's published. I'll come up here with the name in just a second. Great. That's now delivered back out through the Web Services API, so it's appearing in my own little report launcher, and I can launch it out onto the desktop. So a couple of minutes, I've got a completely new visualization, some newly calculated data, and we can deliver it out to all the traders that day if we want to. So moving on, the second of our tools is iPushPull. If Finsemble's a framework for component interoperability, you can think of iPushPull as a framework for data interoperability. They help connect teams and businesses in real time. So how it works is you essentially go and grab some data. So I'm going to get something from Excel here and just copy and paste it into their component. There it is. It's now an iPushPull thing rather than an Excel thing. I'll give it a name and go ahead and share and save that. And you can share this out through Symfony with a cache tag, or I'm going to pop it into their web component so you can see it arriving in a different platform. And there it is. There's the same data. But that's simple enough. What's clever is it's got live syncing. So if I mess around with the data on one side of this, it appears on the other side. And it's two-way if we want it to be, either live syncing or manual push, as this one is, and it goes back the other way. If you've got users, and I'm sure you've all got users in the back room who absolutely live in Excel, they can do it over there too. It can push and pull directly from Excel itself. So I'm setting up a live pull here. And away we go. We can go and push it all the way back out to Excel. Now, as a sort of final flourish on this, I'm going to go and derive a chart from that. We love charts, we're Chart IQ, but if you like doing your charting in Excel, then by all means go for it. I'm just going to create a quick combo chart here, throw some styles on there, make it look pretty, and then give it a title, and go ahead and create an iPushPull page from this. Now, if you remember, underlying this was our synced table in the first place. So I'm building an iPushPull on top of an iPushPull here, but what it's going to allow me to do is get that straight back out into another Finsemble component, put it straight on the desktop. Bear with me a second. Here we go. Now, if I jump into iPushPull, we should see it listed straight away. Search for it, and there we go. Here's my Excel chart out again on a desktop component. And I can go and mess with it because it's syncing through one iPushPull into the other. So this will take a moment more than it might normally because I'm doubling up. But I can just go ahead and edit that data somewhere in a back room, and it's all starting to change on the traders' desktops in front of everybody. Now, the iPushPull integration in particular is very light touch. It's a well-written application. We bring it into a component very simply. I think there's a grand total of 52 lines of code involved in putting that in a component, 25 of which are just CSS and not very dense. And it allows us to launch. There we go. We can add a microservice, again, for a bit of a deeper integration, as we did with YellowFin. We can get at the same set of documents that we've got available to us there. Which, up here, you'll recognize the launcher. I like somewhat economized on code here. But again, listing the same documents, launch it out that way. You could do that from one of your own tools. For example, a portfolio tool, you know you've got documents that match, launch them up. And we can plug it into our search service again. So if you've got lots of these things, just, you know, and you're used to Bloomberg or another tool that uses search to launch very heavily, that's what you can do. We've got workspace integration again, saves the state of the windows. We know they're iPushPull windows. We know what's in them. In fact, in this case, because iPushPull encodes a lot of their state in the URL, what document you're looking at, and the rest in the document itself, we didn't actually have to write any code for state saving here. These things rehydrate automatically. So what did we learn from doing all of this? Well, in many cases, the integration burden is very, very low. So both of these applications took 1 to 2 days of actual development time to integrate into the environment. There were no vendor code changes in each case. We didn't actually have to touch anything. We can do a bit of injection to customize it if we want to. But ultimately, they're well-designed app platforms. They've got nice APIs, so I can integrate very, very deeply into those without having to get them to basically rebuild it just for me. And it allows you to innovate with data. There was nothing particularly complicated for the user about anything I did there. So if you've got, and you will have, relatively technical users, can very quickly learn to do some quite complicated things without having to bother your software development team, who can be working on the next set of tools they're plugging in for you. Overall, it generates something just with these two tools that looks to me very much like a terminal application. It does an awful lot of what you'll need to do on a capital markets desktop. So come and talk to the vendors. They're both here. I think David from iPushPull will be knocking around somewhere, and Ravi from YellowFin. Come and meet the guys who'll be up on in our booth in the intermission, which will be as soon as I get off the stage, I assume. Thank you very much.